Okay, good afternoon. Today is the 30th of March. It is 12:25 p.m. Reporting from Washington State, Pierce County, near the former epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. It's all shifted over to the New York area, and Washington State, having spent almost the entirety of the first 2 or 3 weeks of this pandemic in the top three most badly affected states, has now slipped down to number 6. I was speaking with my older brother. Today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Brian. And he talked about what his experience with all this has been like. He lives in Omaha, and I wanted to just put things into perspective in terms of how badly the state of Nebraska has been hit by this. I'll begin by looking at the most current world figures. It looks like 759, 302 cases. It looks like the world has experienced 36,432 fatalities. The United States remains by far the worst affected state at this time. It looks like we're up to over 156,000 cases. I printed off a report this morning saying that the United States was in first place at 151,944 cases total, with total fatalities now sitting at 2,805. Italy is now in second place at 101,739 cases, but with 11,591 fatalities. And then Spain at 85,195 cases with 7,340 fatalities. Still haven't found any real information as yet about why the mortality rate is so much higher in Spain and in Italy than it is in other places. It looks like the United States has the lowest mortality rate. This is good news that there's provable effectiveness, provable efficacy to the various things that we are doing in the United States that are keeping the mortality rate as low as it is, and where I believe it will remain. Now, state by state, New York has 66,497 cases as of right now, and they have a total death count of 1,218. New Jersey, sitting in number 2 at 16,336 cases with 198 fatalities. And as I said, Washington's down at number 6. Now, as I said, I was speaking with my older brother, who's the only member of my immediate family remaining in Omaha, where we all grew up. Nebraska is way down towards the end of the list here. So let's see. The state with the lowest number of confirmed or positive cases right now is Wyoming. They're sitting at 87 total cases, and it doesn't look like they've experienced any fatalities in Wyoming. Looking at Nebraska, Nebraska is sitting at a total of 120 cases. 120 cases with one fatality. No, I'm sorry, two. Two fatalities in the state of Nebraska and a total of 120 positive or confirmed cases. As compared, I have figures here for Pierce County. On March 29th, Pierce County confirmed 36 new cases, bringing the total cases to 317. So Nebraska has a little over a third of the cases that Pierce County, Washington has. So even he, in a state that is within the top Okay, Nebraska is fifth from the bottom in terms of states and their total number of cases and fatalities. Nebraska is fifth from the bottom, and there's so many restrictions in place that even in a state like that, he's kind of shut in with nowhere to go like the rest of us are. He expressed a certain skepticism about everything, and this is understandable. He doesn't know anyone personally to be ill. And he says that that fact alone brings to his mind a certain suspicion about everything. He didn't elaborate on it, and I didn't ask him to. I simply understand how he feels. I don't personally know anyone who is ill. As far as I don't know anyone who knows anyone who is ill. I'm not saying the figures are not accurate. I believe these numbers that I've been reporting every day to be completely accurate and completely honest. But neither I nor anyone that I know knows anyone to be ill with COVID-19. And when you put that fact in contrast with all of the rest of this, there's a bit of a disconnect. And that disconnect inspires certain feelings and invokes certain thoughts and suspicions in some people. I understand that. I do. I understand it. Now, how is this mess being handled, and what's the current state of things with respect to how it's being handled? Well, the first thing is that the 15 days to slow the spread, those guidelines which were issued by the White House, that has been extended through the end of April. The president and the coronavirus task force assembled a press availability in the Rose Garden of the White House yesterday. And there was a lot of back and forth after the president made his statements and the various members of the task force all made their statements. There were questions back and forth. A lot of that was just petty squabbling and reporters trying to play gotcha. And their efforts to do that are transparently cheap. And I mentioned yesterday that I might make some foray into the hyper partisan element of this whole thing and how it's being politicized by both sides. I've decided I'm not going to do that, at least not for right now. There's nothing about it when I watch it, when I read about it. There's nothing about it that makes me want to say anything. I the whole thing, the fighting and the squabbling and the bickering that's going on within the United States between the media and the White House, it it's all it just it doesn't inspire me at all. It doesn't inspire me to act. It doesn't inspire me to think. It doesn't inspire me to speak. It just makes me feel disgusted, very honestly. So I'm going to sort of leave that aspect of it alone, at least for now, unless there's something that comes up that inspires in me something that I really know I want to express. And I'm nowhere close to that at this point. But with respect to what's going on, the extension of the guidelines out to April 30th, it says here, and I'm just quoting from the transcription of the president's remarks, therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th to slow the spread. On Tuesday, so I guess that's tomorrow, on Tuesday, we will be finalizing these plans and providing a summary of our findings, supporting data, and strategy to the American people. So we'll have lots of meetings in between, but we'll be having a very important statement made on Tuesday, probably Tuesday evening, of all the findings, all the data, and all the reasons we're doing things the way we're doing them. He goes on, we can expect that by June 1st, we will be well on our way to recovery. We think by June 1st, a lot of great things will be happening. So, according to statements coming from the top, which includes very learned and very experienced medical professionals, there is light at the end of the tunnel instead of just more tunnel. because from day to day, not having an end in sight, that's what it feels like for all of us. Just more tunnel. I received communication from my job today, and we all have been placed on furloughed status. I filed my unemployment claim yesterday, and the state is reporting that I'm getting my normal payment. The figures reported to me directly by the state regarding my unemployment claim do not include the $600 additional money. I don't know if that's because it's not coming from the state directly. Maybe it's coming, maybe the state's getting paid and then they'd pay us, in which case I would expect to see that additional $600 reflected in what they're reporting to me. But I'm not going to know anything about that for sure until the money comes to my bank account, which I expect sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. I would recommend everybody keep a close eye on that. We don't know exactly how this is going to look. So as soon as people get paid by the state for this most recent week that was claimed, that's when we'll know how this is, how the additional $600 of money is going to come to us. Okay. So being placed on furloughed status with my job, local stay-at-home orders broadly expected to be extended. They were supposed to expire as of the 6th of April at midnight. We can expect, I'm predicting we can expect that to be extended. Federal guidelines coming from the White House having been extended to the end of April as well, and people looking out as far as June the 1st for some recovery, some measurable, actionable recovery to begin. People are looking at the 1st of June. I've commented before about China, about China's relationship with the World Health Organization, the leadership of the World Health Organization, their Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. There's been some noise through various media outlets that the Chinese government has continued with their shady practices by misreporting the number of cases and by trying to paint a rosy picture. And while I was looking for information about that, I came across this story, which was updated or published 2 hours ago. This is from RT.com. And this is the headline: "This dictatorship just beat pandemic, and you're just jealous," Chinese embassy in France tells the West. Western media and governments refusing to give China credit for battling COVID-19 in Wuhan simply envy its efficiency, the Chinese embassy in France said, as it took a jab at how the West was coping with the pandemic. Naysayers, quote, envy the efficiency of our political system and hate the inability of their own nations to perform as well. So they try to stick the dictatorship label on China, the embassy argued in a provocative essay published over the weekend. These very same detractors instead praise the Asian democracies such as South Korea, Japan, and Singapore, the article noted, adding that China's quarantine measures were more drastic because it has a much larger population and faced a bigger challenge in fighting the coronavirus. Either way, the Asian countries have been more successful in containing the pandemic than Western nations, and the virus ultimately doesn't care whether it's ravaging a democracy or an autocracy, argued the embassy in the essay titled Political Systems and the Fight Against the Epidemic: The Great Dilemma. China officially claims to have largely succeeded in containing COVID-19, which was first recorded in its Hubei province in December. Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, has recorded no new cases in a week and has been lifting restrictions that helped quash the pandemic, again, according to the official information. I'm going to go on record and say I don't believe this. I don't. Beijing sees the outcome as a success story, and it finds it irritating when commentators in countries currently overwhelmed by the virus, such as France and the United States, insist they have nothing to learn from Chinese experience. With the threat of coronavirus diminishing at home, China has been busy building goodwill, and sharing expertise with other nations affected by the pandemic, sending doctors and aid supplies to those in need. Also, China has embarked on a war of words with Western detractors, most notably United States President Donald Trump, who at one point called the pathogen the Chinese virus. One of its foreign ministry spokespeople went so far as to suggest that the virus is American in origin and may have been brought to the Wuhan area by a United States military delegation last fall. This kind of ill will has also infected China's aid efforts, with many Western pundits accusing mask diplomacy of coming with potential strings attached, undermining European solidarity and damaging European relations with the United States. A number of U.S. officials have accused Beijing of flat out lying about coronavirus statistics, with one senator citing reports of 2,500 additional cremation urns recently delivered to a funeral home in Wuhan as evidence. Links to the story inevitably popped up in response to the Chinese embassy in France after it tweeted excerpts from its article. So, now here's a first. I have received some real-time commentary to my broadcast. The first, I'm going to say, this is from about 8 minutes ago. This is from someone with whom I worked at a customer of mine from the music store. His name's Curtis, and he says, "I'm healthy. I'm also an essential worker, and I've yet to meet anyone who is ill." I'm going to repeat his comment. His name is Curtis. This is from 9 minutes ago now. He says, and I quote, "I'm healthy. I'm also an essential worker, and I have yet to meet anyone who's ill." Thanks, Curtis. Also, a friend, Dustin. This is from him about 2 minutes ago. "Did you see that the National Forest Service shut everything down until at least September 30th? No. No, Dustin, I had not seen that. I'm going to look into that. That's... Oh, man. If that's true, that would mean that I don't get to go do my astronomy activity in the months of July and August. Those of you who might not know, I am a volunteer park ranger at Mount Rainier National Park. That's what this hat is. I like to take my telescope up to Paradise Lodge, set it up alongside the telescopes that were provided by the National Park Service, and I participate in their star parties. We had numbers above 250 people on one night lined up at the telescopes to view things like Jupiter, like Saturn, like the Great Cluster in Hercules. I learned a lot more in the last season of stargazing than I had in many, many years previous to that, because of the caliber of people who were there, the park rangers who were there, some of whom work with NASA. One in particular actually is on the team that directs and controls and drives the Curiosity rover on Mars. It's such an amazing way to spend my evenings throughout the summer months. And if my friend Dustin is correct, and I'm going to repeat what he's saying right here, did you see that the National Forest Service shut everything down until at least September 30th? That would mean there will not be an astronomy season this year. And that's what is that? 5 months from now? No, it's 6 months. 6 months from today. So the National Forest Service, and I'm going to look into this, no offense to you, Dustin, I'm going to look into this to independently verify it. I'm going to assume he's correct. The National Forest Service has closed everything down until 6 months from today's date. Is the idea of social distancing in a national forest such a concern that we can't allow people to go to these parks? You think people go to a national park to be crowded? Are conditions that unsafe? I that doesn't pass the common sense checks to me. Not even close. So, well, there we are, guys. Earlier today, I decided I wanted to go out and take a drive someplace. The weather looked ideal for it, but it's been kind of a patchwork of weather. Right now, it's sunny outside, but not an hour ago, it was literally hailing. So that's Washington weather for you. The stay-at-home guidelines imposed by the governor do say you're welcome to take a drive. I wonder if taking a drive across state lines is going to be an issue. As I said, I just got a telephone call from the general manager of my store indicating that we're all now on furloughed status, officially laid off. Although it's not as though there's not a job to return to when this is all over, but there's not an end in sight. There's not an end in sight. I have done one of these broadcasts every day since this. I don't want to say since this whole thing began, because there was not. I mean, this had been developing. There was a broad concern about this at the time I started my broadcasts, but I began this when I was at Crystal Mountain with my close friend and with my dad, and were informed that the mountain had shut down while we were there. That's when I started all this, and I have lost count of how many of these broadcasts I've done, but it seems like it's been at least 15 of them. I've been doing this for at least 2 weeks, and there is no end in sight. At the time that I began this, I thought that I might have been looking at a total of maybe 4 days without going to work. Now there really is no end in sight. I need to get out of this apartment. And I don't know if I'll do that today. As I think I said yesterday, I've been binge watching Breaking Bad just to try to get myself reacquainted with that series, because tonight the newest episode of Better Call Saul is set to air, and I'm going to watch that. That's kind of one of the few things I've been looking forward to. But tomorrow, who knows? Because I've been watching so much Vince Gilligan stuff, I I don't know if I've mentioned it to you guys, but a long time ago I lived in the state of New Mexico. I didn't live in Albuquerque, actually. I lived some considerable distance south of Albuquerque in a military town called Alamogordo. And my older brother that I just spoke with on the phone earlier, he has actually visited New Mexico a couple times, and specifically Alamogordo once, although it's been, I think, about 18 years since he did that. And his comment to me about it was that he didn't remember or didn't realize when we were kids how much of a dump Alamogordo is. I have fond memories of it. I remember the very first time I looked through a telescope at the moon was in Alamogordo from our front porch. My brother had received a small refractor telescope as a Christmas or birthday present, and we had it pointed at the moon, and it was the first time that I looked through a telescope. That was in Alamogordo. And Alamogordo and New Mexico in general would be ideal for astronomical observation. It's sunny like 330 some days a year. It's also at a higher elevation. Albuquerque is something like somewhere around 5,000 feet. Alamogordo is around 4,000 feet in elevation. I'm basically at sea level here. Although when I go to places like Paradise Lodge on Mount Rainier, that's up above 5,000 feet. That's where I've done the bulk of my observing in the state of Washington. It looks now like I got a private message from my friend Dustin, who has provided more information about the national forest closures. So give me just 1 second. I'm going to open that and see what I can share with everyone. I'll be right back. Okay, the link that I was sent is from the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, and I'm just looking to see what their news alerts are. The exact link that I was given just brings up the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest main page about the forest, road and trail conditions, forest features, and there is a COVID 19 alert. I'm going to open that and see what it has to say. Offering virtual services, the Forest Service in Washington State and Oregon are aligning operations to support state governor executive orders for residents to stay at home, stay safe, and save lives. Developed recreation sites, including snow parks and campgrounds, are closing to protect staff and the communities we serve. As part of our dedication to the public we serve, Forest Service employees are still available by phone to answer all of your questions. If you need immediate assistance or have any questions, please call your local office. And Dustin, I appreciate the information providing. As yet, I don't see these restrictions with respect to bringing everything into a state of being closed until the 30th of September. But I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking when I'm no longer broadcasting and see what I can find. I do appreciate very much the interaction. That's a first. And I'm going to follow up on everything that I'm given. I had someone send me a note yesterday about not using ibuprofen or Advil as a way to treat symptoms of COVID 19 because they kickstarted into pneumonia. And I did find some corroboration on that. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to keep digging until I find corroboration on this. And thanks, Dustin. So, okay. That's 27 minutes. Wow. I didn't realize how much the time had gotten away from me today. I've kind of been in a bit of a on a bit of a tear throughout most of last night and this morning. I certainly am energized, not necessarily in a positive way, and there's a number of reasons for that. But it all kind of comes down to I need to get out of this apartment. The sun's shining. There's things to be done out there, even if I'm not going to be able to do what I'd most rather be doing, most prefer to be doing. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm looking to tomorrow, and it'll be tomorrow evening when we get this big announcement and the specifics of new guidelines from the White House. I'm going to be excited to see what that's all about and how those directives might trickle down to the state level. Also, again, awaiting clarification from the governor in Olympia to see exactly how the statewide stay at home order is to be extended. There's a lot coming, and I suspect every day is going to bring something totally different. The way this situation is developing in real time, a lot can change in 24 hours. A lot can change in 1 hour. So I'm going to keep with this. Again, if I decide this to jump town, which I very well may, I mean, the mood I'm in right now is a very new experience. I imagine most of you could say the same thing. If I decide to jump town, I'll take my iPhone with me and I will continue broadcasting as long as I'm able to. As of right now, Better Call Saul is on tonight. That's the only thing I'm really looking forward to. And after that, we'll see. For now, be good to each other.